Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. We're going to be talking about Disney Plus Star Wars content and our main topic, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But first, some Star Wars news. Music by John Williams is an all-new documentary on the life and career of the legendary composer, coming to Disney Plus on November 1st. Star Wars fans are absolutely over the moon about this. The maestro of a generation, the music behind The Galaxy Far Far Away as well as Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, Home Alone, Jaws. This documentary is unmissable, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Now that he's out of retirement, he's going to score for Star Wars in a future project. Considering he professes that Rey is one of his favourite characters, I wouldn't be surprised if they get him back for the Rey movie. What do you guys think? Are you looking forward to this? Now on to some pressing news concerning actual content. Jeff Snyder has confirmed, before the cancellation of the Acolyte Season 2, Lucasfilm had started putting together a writer's room, but it was then scrapped. The rumour, which originated with John Rocker, goes on to say, Lucasfilm is about to pause production on Disney Plus shows. This is something that's been a long time coming. Bob Iger has deemed that Star Wars on the Disney Plus streaming platform is not profitable in the amounts we've seen. In other words, after Skeleton Crew, Andor Season 2 and Ahsoka Season 2, there might be a long break. That's not to say we won't eventually get more live-action shows, and it doesn't account for the animated shows coming too. It just means that for a time, Star Wars is going to prioritize its cinematic content and take a break from live-action Disney Plus. To be honest, it's not too surprising. The Mandalorian's first 2 seasons, Book of Boba Fett, and Kenobi were the shows that were profitable, but then we saw a major decline, and now after the cancellation of the second season of The Acolyte, I wouldn't be surprised if this solidified Disney's decision. But Snyder does go on to say, quote, there are still a lot of projects in the works we don't know about, but Disney Lucasfilm wants to take a break from the streaming service and reprioritize Star Wars on the big screen. Aside from the known slate of upcoming shows and movies, we don't know what's next. We don't know what the game plan is, and if there is one. But with this in mind, this brings us on to our main topic. Star Wars is trying to finally make something right. Obi-Wan Kenobi was undoubtedly a mixed bag of a TV show. While some fans really hated it, I would say I'm more conflicted. On the one hand, there were a couple of awesome moments and it was great to see the return of Hayden and Ewan, but at the same time, guys, I don't think it did justice to the characters of Obi-Wan and Vader, and overall the plot was pretty underwhelming and inconsistent. We all went in with very high expectations, and it's only natural because these are some of the main characters in the entire franchise. On top of this, you had Kathleen Kennedy hyping it up as the rematch of the century, and as Star Wars fans, we've all pictured and imagined our headcanons of what Obi-Wan was up to on Tatooine between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. For me, it was the Kenobi Legends novel which shaped a lot of it, but the series itself went a very different direction, with side characters that Star Wars fans just didn't vibe with. And one of the major issues was not doing justice to the Inquisitors. And while I would say it's almost an impossibility at this stage, the show will get a second season, Lucasfilm is trying to right some of those wrongs. I broke down the first issue of the new Inquisitors comic run a few weeks ago, and now, my dear friends, the second issue is out. The first one gave us a much more true-to-form Grand Inquisitor, looking and talking menacingly the way he did in Star Wars Rebels, whereas issue number 2 just gave us more Fifth Brother, as well as an exclusive look at what the character was like as a Padawan. Again, truer to his best portrayals. When I first saw him in Star Wars Rebels, he looked absolutely terrifying, but he was completely wasted in the Kenobi show. But now he finally has a time to shine. It's a shame this has to be done in the comics. At least we get to see the Jedi Hunter instilling the fear of God into surviving Force users, as fans learn more about his singular motivations and ambitions as a member of the Inquisitorius. And we learn something that was reiterated a few years ago: he exists to fulfill the promise of Order 66. Palpatine had been training him for this purpose years before the Clone Wars ended, and we finally get to see this in this comic. In the book Battle Scars, we learn the Fifth Brother was taken from his family on the planet Artemisium. Having been identified by the Jedi, he was taken in to Coruscant. He was promised a meaningful life of grand spirituality and service to the Force. And did you know, he grew disillusioned with the Jedi from a young age? In the new comic, when he's hunting down Tenzu Run, he reflects, The ruins, they tell the story of a conflict of which there was little to no reward. This place conjures thoughts I've long set aside. And then he remembers his training as a young Jedi. By this point, he already knew his purpose, and he says, "The purpose of my existence is to fulfill the promise of Order 66, nothing more." And there's an added tragedy to this comic. The fact the Fifth Brother doesn't see himself worthy of life beyond his purpose. In fact, he's already given up on it. At the end of the comic, he comes face to face with the Jedi he's been hunting, Tenzin Run. He exclaims, "I'm surprised you actually came." And the Jedi responds, "This must all end. You must end," the Fifth Brother jabs. "Is it me or what I represent? I assure you, if I fail, the Jedi will endure. Only one way to find out." The two of them duel, and the Fifth Brother loses his arm. He looks up at the Jedi, and this is the sad bit. He believes he's failed, and so he tells him, "End my existence." It kind of reminds me of Star Wars Rebels when the Grand Inquisitor tells Kanan, "There are some fates worse than death." In this case, the Fifth Brother would rather die then and there than have to face the wrath of Darth Vader. But Tenzin Run sends him back to Vader and says, "No, I need you to tell your master that Tenzin Run still lives." A very sad state of affairs, and this comic does more for the character of the Fifth Brother than the Kenobi show did. And just a reminder, the Fifth Brother later in the timeline dies in 3BBY on Malachor in his fight against Maul and Ahsoka. And this is another great example, my dear friends, of how the non-live action content, the comics, the animated shows, and in the case of some other Inquisitors like Trilla, Jedi Fallen Order, some of the best written characters are not in live action. Lucasfilm seem to get it right in every other medium. And like I said before, it'd be interesting if they ever continue the story of Reva. Could you imagine, in a future comic run, she herself, now back on the light side, is hunted down and killed by the Inquisitors she once served? I can't imagine Darth Vader would let her go. And is there going to be enough fan traction, fan interest, to warrant it? And getting back on topic with the Fifth Brother, one of the biggest missed opportunities was having the Seventh Sister coming to live action. She was probably off on different missions, but her chemistry, and often rivalry with the Fifth Brother, was one of the highlights of the Inquisitorius in Star Wars Rebels. His brute strength versus her cunning and strategic approach. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.